Okay, everyone, in this video, we wanted to cover two things. We wanted to cover setting up your Wovyn sensor to send events to your Pico, and we wanted to cover chaining events. So first, we're going to focus on having your Wovyn sensor set up to send events to your Pico. So you should have a Wovyn sensor, looks like this, and it's pretty cool, but the only things you should maybe even just care about are this button right here that we'll be using during the setup, and this little sensor right here. That's actually the thing that's detecting the temperature of the room. And then just keep in mind, this is actually where you plug in the power. And so there's also other things you're going to want to have in hand when doing this setup. I have a list of them right here. You're going to want your IP address. You're going to want your port, your Pico DID, which is just the ECI that, or the channel that you want to receive these events on. So you can make a whole new channel for that if you'd like. You're going to want a domain and a type of the event that you want to be raised every time this sensor picks up a new temperature. For this video, we're just going to be using Wovyn and heartbeat. And then you're going to want to build that event URL. And so this is just me. I have it just built. I'd recommend you having it built beforehand so you can just copy and paste it, because when doing the setup, it's going to ask for what URL to make the request to. For if any of you guys are having difficulty finding your IP address or the port, remember that when you start your Pico engine, they're right here, right? You got your port, and then you got the IP address right here. So if you guys would like, you can get it from right there. So let's get started. I'm just gonna give a couple steps beforehand because it's gonna happen pretty quickly. The setup isn't too difficult, but we're hoping this video is gonna help with any questions you may have. So we're gonna plug in the power to this sensor, and once we do, we're going to want to hold that white button right here, the one I mentioned earlier. You're gonna wanna hold it, and it's gonna start blinking blue. Once it starts blinking blue, you're going to want to go to just wherever you connect your Wi-Fi. So like right here on the Mac, go up right here, click the symbol, and you'll have the Wovyn device show up there, and you're going to want to connect to it. I should say that when you write down the IP address of your computer, make sure that if you're not going to grab it from this the terminal, that you grab that IP address when you're connected to the Wi-Fi that you'll be receiving the events on. A lot of students make mistakes, and they'll connect to the Wovyn device first, then grab their IP address, and they end up building their event URL with the wrong IP address. So that's just a little warning. So remember, we're going to connect it, hold the white button, it's going to blink blue. Then we go up here and we're going to look for it as a Wi-Fi to connect to. So we're making this a Wi-Fi hotspot. It's really what we're doing. That's what we got to do first. So I'm going to do that real quick. I'm going to connect it, hold the button. You see it blinking blue. I'm going right here, and it should show up here in a sec, right here. Once I click on it, I'll have a little pop-up show up here in a sec. There it is. And you're going to want to go to configure Wi-Fi. Okay, once you're in configure, you're going to want to click on the Wi-Fi you're connected to before. So I was connected to this white one right here. Then you're going to want to put the password in for that Wi-Fi. And then after that, you're going to want to put that endpoint URI that we built earlier. So here's the event URL that we made. So I'm gonna put that in there. Once you do that, you want to scroll down and you want to say how fast you want to receive these event heartbeats. How many times do you want the sensor to start sending these new temperatures to your Pico? And I'm okay with 5 for the purposes of this video. So then you want to click save. Okay, so once you've done that, you can close out of there, and go back to the Wi-Fi you were on before. Okay, now that you're connected back to the Wi-Fi you were on before, you should now be receiving events from the Wovyn sensor. So let's go down and see if I'm getting those right now. Yeah, and you can see that every 5 seconds, like I set it up to be, I'm going to be getting those events, like right there. So the event I just told my sensor to raise, right? It's a really simple rule that I wrote. It is right here, right? You can see that domain and type, Wovyn heartbeat, and then I just have this simple message that I wrote, and I have it send that in the directives. So yeah, you guys can use the rule for whatever purpose you'd like. You do get this huge map with the temperature inside of it and other information. So yeah, hopefully you guys found that helpful. And next we'll be talking about chaining events. Okay, we want to talk about how you can chain events when writing your rules in KRO. So you can have a rule that raises an event, and that event raises another event, and so on and so forth. It's really simple. You can actually raise an explicit event with this syntax right here. So basically, you just write, and this only goes in the postlude. So you can do raise the domain of the event, and then the type in the form of a string. You can also use a for clause that lets basically specifies like which rule set this event's going to be raised in. So you can do multiple rule sets if you'd like. And then you can also do the attributes clause. So let's look at these rules that I've written. I wrote multiple rules that basically raise each other. Right? Chain 1 will raise chain 2, chain 2 will raise chain 3, and then chain 3 will raise the finish event. And so the purpose of me doing this is I was just trying to find different ways you guys can use the this syntax right here for raising events. So here in this chain 1 rule, I raised the chain 2 rule, and I just do something very simple. I just say raise chain event 2, and all I do is pass in the attributes, and in there I give this message, which is the same message I received here in chain 1. In chain 2, I do something a little different. I actually make use of this guard right here, which is going to be very helpful for you guys who are developing on the Pico engine. Basically, it will only raise this event if this condition right here is met. So I check if the message is null or if it's the empty string. I don't want to raise chain 3, basically. But if this is the case, right, it's not null and it's not the empty string, then the chain 3 event will be raised. And the chain 3 event, I actually make use of the for clause. And I say, hey, I'm only going to be raising the finish event for the current rule set I'm in. So I use this meta rid, which gives the current rule set. And so to test this, right, I made a second rule set called test2, which has this finished event as well. And it shouldn't be raised. And just to show that it's not being raised, actually, we'll send a directive called test2 if it's raised. And I also have the chain 3 event. So you'll see that it will raise the event here as well when we raise it here. And at the very end, right, I just say, hey, I made it all the way through, and I send any directives. So let's test this out. Let's see how it works. So I've already beforehand I wrote in the right here. I wrote my little test for the testing tab. So let's go here, and let's say I write blah. Right. You'll see right here where we get the first chain with the message. I send that directive, the second chain, and then we see that in test 2 we get that third chain, and we get the third chain from just a test rule set, and we only get the directives from the finished rule and the test rule set. Because remember, in test 2, if it was this one that got raised, we would see test 2 finished. but we only see finished. Now, let's say I were to get rid of that for clause here. You'll see that it will raise it at both of them. So see, we have finished and test2 finished. And we can even show that the guard works by doing the empty string. And if that's the case, right, if the guard is going to work, then we shouldn't see chain 3 be erased at all. We should only see chain 1 and chain 2. There you go. So I hope you guys can see the use cases for this the raise event syntax. Comes with a lot of tools, right? Don't forget that you can use the attributes clause to send any attributes, and the for clause to make sure that only the rules only raise on certain rule sets. And then you can also use these guards right here.